The Wilkes-Barre Health Department presents nutrition tips for healthy eating. Easy to make recipes to keep you healthy with nutritious fruits and vegetables. Now here's another great recipe from the Commission on Economic Opportunity's Nutrition Education team.
Hello, and thank you for joining me today on the CEO Nutrition page. I'm Amanda, a nutrition educator with CEO, and in this video, we'll be making a pasta ratatouille recipe utilizing a variety of fresh produce that we can find at our local farmers market. First, we'll go over the ingredients and materials that we'll need to complete the recipe. Then we'll talk a little bit about food safety and knife safety when cutting up this produce. We'll talk about how to cut up the produce to prepare it for cooking. And then finally, we'll get to the cooking process. So let's get started.
To make pasta ratatouille, we'll need 8 ounces or a half box of uncooked whole wheat pasta, 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil, a half a cup or about 1/2 medium onion, 2 cloves of garlic, 1 medium green bell pepper, 1 small zucchini, 1 eggplant, 2 medium tomatoes, 3/4 teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, and a cup of low-fat shredded cheese. For kitchen materials, you'll need a cutting board, a chef knife, possibly a serrated knife, a few bowls to put our chopped produce into, a skillet for cooking the ratatouille, a spoon to stir, a large stock pot to boil the pasta, and a colander to strain it.
Now that I've gathered everything we need for this recipe, I am going to pull my hair back so that it's out of my face and out of our food, and then we're going to get to hand washing.
Whenever we're preparing food, we must make sure to wash our hands under warm water for at least 20 seconds. Since I have longer nails, I'm also using a nail brush to make sure that I'm getting all of the dirt and germs out from under there as well. Once our hands are nice and clean, we're going to use a paper towel to dry them. But don't throw it away and just keep it to the side because it will be useful a little bit later. It's also very important for us to wash our produce since it can acquire dirt and germs through the harvesting and selling process. Here you'll see I'm rinsing all of our produce under cold water, aside from the onions and garlic, since we'll be peeling away layers of those. I like to allow the produce to dry on a clean dishcloth just to conserve paper towels. Now, if you're new to cooking and you don't want too many things going on in the kitchen at one time, I recommend boiling the pasta first and setting it to the side before cooking the ratatouille. If you're more skilled and you can handle multitasking, then you could boil the pasta while you're cooking the vegetables, but that choice is up to you. If you are making the pasta first, you can drizzle in a little oil after it's drained to keep the pasta from sticking together while you're making the rest of the recipe. Before we even pick up the knife, we want to make sure that our cutting board is secure. We don't want it moving and sliding around on us because that will make it much more likely we will cut ourselves. Remember that paper towel I told you to save earlier from washing our hands? We're going to put that right under where our cutting board will be. This will make the cutting board much more stable and secure. Now let's talk about holding the knife. You may see people holding a knife with their finger on top or just around the handle. Both of these techniques do not give us enough control of the knife and can make it more likely we'll cut ourselves. What we want to do is pinch the knife where the handle meets the blade and then wrap the rest of our fingers around the handle. This is a much more secure way for us to hold the knife. This might feel weird at first, but with practice, this grip provides much more control of the knife. Another important thing to talk about is actually the cutting motion. We don't want to be chopping straight up and down. We want to have a sort of wave motion where the knife is rocking back and forth. You can also leave the tip of the knife on your cutting board and use that same rocking motion when chopping. Let's start with our zucchini. We'll want to cut the ends off first. And with any produce that we're going to cut with a knife, we always want to try to get a flat surface. We don't want it rolling around on us. So for the zucchini, we'll get a good grip on it and cut right down the middle. And now we have 2 flat halves. It's important to note how we should be holding the objects we're cutting with the hand that is not controlling the knife. We don't want to lay our hands out flat because then our fingers can get in the way and it's more likely we will have an accident. The safer grip is to actually tuck our fingers into what is called a claw grip so that the tips of our fingers are protected. We want the knife to gently rest against the knuckles. This not only prevents us from getting close to our fingertips, it also acts to set the thickness of the cuts we're making. This way, you're never going to cut your fingertips since the knife will glide along your knuckles before it ever cuts your finger. Once we've cut one half, we can put what we've chopped into a bowl to make more room on the cutting board. I'm using the knife to help me gather more zucchini, but if you use this technique, make sure to touch the zucchini and not the knife blade. Then we'll do the same thing with the other half. We want to try and make all our cuts the same size so that they cook evenly. Same thing with our eggplant. Because of its shape, you can see how easily it rolls around. First things first, we want to cut off the ends, and then with a firm grip, we'll slice it right down the middle to get those two flat halves again. In order to match the size of the zucchini, I'm going to slice each half into 3. Going in with that same claw grip, we're going to chop our eggplant, trying to go for the same thickness that we cut our zucchini. The skin on the eggplant is a little bit tougher than the zucchini, so it is a little more resistant to cutting. It's actually safer to work with a sharp knife, but if your knife isn't too sharp, you may want to use a serrated knife instead. It will provide more grip on produce with a smooth surface, such as an eggplant or a tomato. Here, I'm dicing our first tomato with an advanced technique. I like to start with the tomato stem side down to provide that stable base. And the idea of this technique is to slice the tomato almost all the way through, but leaving just a little space at the bottom, which allows the tomato to be held together. And if you mess up like I did, that's okay too, we can make it work. So once we sliced through one way, we then rotate the tomato and slice through the other way. Once both directions are sliced, we then lay the tomato on its side and slice straight through, giving us a nice dice. If this technique is a bit too complicated, you can also simply make slices and cut each slice in 2 directions. We're going to want to put the cut tomato in a separate bowl from the other vegetables because they will be stirred in at the end of the cooking process. I found this unique pepper to use in our recipe, and then my recording cut out. So I'll be demonstrating how to cut a pepper with this standard green pepper. When we're working with bell peppers, we want to decide which side is more stable to chop, and for this pepper, it turned out to be the top side. So top side down, using our claw grip and cutting straight through the middle. To remove the seeds, we simply grab the seed bunch and bend it back out of the pepper. Then we can just tap out any remaining seeds. And we'll repeat that process with the other half of the pepper. Now that the seeds are removed, we'll place the flat sides down and cut our peppers roughly the same size as our zucchini and eggplant. Now for our onion, we want to take this part with the tail, not the part with the hairy root, and using our claw hand, we're going to chop that off so that we have a nice, stable base to work with. Then we're going to cut straight through the middle of the onion, leaving some root on both sides. Next, we're going to peel both halves of the onion. We want to make sure all of the skin is removed, even if we have to take off the first top layer of onion. My onion had a small bruise, so we can simply slice that off until there's no damage remaining. With our onion close to us on the cutting board and our claw grip holding securely but not pushing down too hard, we're going to guide the knife through horizontally. Just like our tomato technique, we do not want to be slicing all the way through, but instead leaving some space for the onion to be held together. Make 2 to 3 horizontal slices. Next, we want to slice down vertically. I like to put the tip of my knife on the onion where I want the cut to start. This will allow us to keep the onion intact and prevent us from slicing straight through it. Our last step is just to chop straight through the onion to get our dice. Once you get to the root, you can also chop off the rest of the onion just so we're not wasting. And there you have your diced onion. If that technique is too intimidating, or if your knife isn't sharp enough, you can also simply slice the onion and then chop the slices to form your dice. For the fresh garlic, we want to get to the cloves, so we'll chop off the tail end just like we did with our onion. Then we'll peel off some of the outside layers to expose the cloves. Once we have a clove, we're going to cut the root side where everything is held together. To get it out of the peel, place the clove under the knife and push down, crushing the clove and making it easier for us to peel away the skin. Once the clove is peeled, we'll take our claw hand again and we'll make slices of the garlic. Then, pinching the knife and bracing it with your other hand, we're going to rock the knife back and forth to finely mince the garlic. The smaller the mince, the more garlic flavor will be released into the dish. So you can repeat this rocking motion as much as you like until your garlic is the size you prefer. And there is our minced garlic. Now that all of our produce is prepared, it's time to cook. Start by heating 2 tablespoons of oil over medium heat. Add in the onion and garlic and cook until the onions are soft. Make sure to stir so that the onion and garlic don't stick to the pan and burn. While we're waiting for the onions, we can measure out our spices, which are 3/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, and 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning. Now we'll add in our pepper, zucchini, and eggplant. These will take about 10 to 12 minutes to cook, depending on the size that they're cut. If you want them to cook faster, cut smaller pieces. I like my vegetables to be a bit firm, so I chose to cut larger pieces for this recipe. Just like the onion and garlic, we want to make sure to keep stirring our vegetables so that they all cook evenly. If you see some veggies that are less done than others, try and push those to the bottom and bring the ones that are cooked more towards the top. Now that the veggies are cooked to our desired softness, we're going to stir in the tomatoes. Then we'll add in the seasoning. And then we'll just mix until everything is combined. Then we'll let it simmer for a moment until everything is heated through. Then we can turn the heat off and we're done cooking. To finish the dish, we'll start with a little bit of the whole wheat pasta, add the ratatouille on top, and then finish with some shredded mozzarella cheese.
I hope you enjoyed watching this recipe. Please let us know if you plan to make the recipe or if there are any changes you would make to the recipe when you do make it. We love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.